Oh, is it? Or if everybody could hold tight for 1 second, we'll get started in 1 minute. Is this the one you were talking? It's 12:44. All right, good morning. Today is Monday, December the 2nd. This committee of the whole is called to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Here.
Bishop. Here.
Here.
Ray. Airstone. Harsh.
Here.
Here. Jones. Casey. Skelly. Moore. McCormick.
Present.
Valencia.
Present.
Santana. Dwight. Spencer. Prescott. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Yeah. All right, once again, we're going to do guest first. And the first guest we have is for Mayor David Weiss from Shaker Heights to join us regarding 1328-2024. Anytime we got a mayor here, we got to make sure that we acknowledge the mayor from our border city. Mayor, good to see you. Welcome, good to see you. All right. Okay, this ordinance is ordinance number 1328-2024 by council members Bishop and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the director of capital projects and/or public works as appropriate to enter into a joint sponsorship agreement with the cities of Shaker Heights and Cleveland Heights regarding city-owned property jointly located in both cities necessary for the cities to file a grant application for funding under the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, Land and Water Conservation Fund Grant Program. Mayor and Director.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. So before I start, I wanted to introduce our guest today. So to my right is Mayor David Weiss of Shaker Heights. To his right is Karen Knittel, the Assistant Planning Director for the City of Cleveland Heights. And to my left is Joyce Braverman, the Director of City Planning for Shaker Heights. So, Mr. Chairman, before I hand it over to our guests to go through a quick PowerPoint, I wanted to remind folks that the city of Cleveland does own land outside of our city limits, quite a bit of land. This land that we're speaking of today was gifted to the city from the Rockefellers. And so while this is in both the cities of Shaker Heights and Cleveland Heights, I can say as a resident of Ward 6 that these are parks that I enjoy, especially during COVID. I spent quite a bit of time in these particular parts. So I'm pleased to bring this forward, which is to seek council authority to co-sponsor a grant application, which is required because we own the land. So I'll jump back in, but at this point, I'd like to hand it over to Mayor Weiss to say a few words.
Thank you, Mayor Weiss.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to spend just a few minutes with you. I will try to be brief. This is a project to completely renovate the Horseshoe Lake Park. As many of you may know, there was a dam there. It still is a dam that's over 170 years old. It is an earthen dam, so there's no structure inside the dam holding it in place, and it has over time, slowly but surely deteriorated to the point where it's now become a health and safety issue for both Cleveland Heights and Shaker Heights, as well as those that visit the park on a regional basis from throughout the area. We are working very closely with the sewer district and Cleveland Heights, and basically about a third of the lake, or what used to be the lake, is in Cleveland Heights and 2/3 is in Shaker. But we are working cooperatively and have been for several years to really bring back this lake back to a condition that we will all be proud of and will be an attractive asset for the community. And with that, I will turn it over to our planning director, Ms. Joyce Braverman.
Thank you. This is the existing condition that Mayor Weiss just discussed. We're also handing out a map of what we're going to talk about, so you can have that in front of you. Next one. The sewer district will invest $24 million to remove the dam and restore the streams to their original conditions from the late 1800s. The city of Cleveland Heights and Shaker Heights are in charge of constructing things like boardwalks, trails, other connections, and other amenities at a cost of $7 million. And what you see here is the blue squiggly line are the original streams that will be restored, and the green are a lot of trees that are going to be planted or replanted. So the next slide shows the actual path, and this is shown with red stars on it. It's part of a trail system that will go in, and this one connects Cleveland Heights to the north and Shaker Heights to the south. The grant is for a 10-foot wide asphalt path. It is, again, the federal land and water conservation grant that's administered by ODNR and requires that the property owner be a co-sponsor of the grant. There's no monetary match or maintenance responsibility for the city of Cleveland, but legislation is required. The grant was due November 15th, and we have 1 month to submit our legislation. Grant awards are anticipated in mid-2025, and construction will start in 2026. And then just a few words about our lease. This has been a long-term lease starting in 1947 between Cleveland and the two cities. The leases were extended many times, and in 1990, each city signed a lease with Cleveland for a 50-year lease. The current lease expires in 2040. And again, the use of the property per the lease is for park and recreational purposes only. And that concludes my remarks.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, just to add to what Joyce said about City of Cleveland responsibilities. So as long as the lease is in place, both Cleveland Heights and Shaker Heights are responsible for maintaining the land. We see no reason why these leases would be terminated by either party. But if for some reason the city had to take on the responsibilities of the grant, it would simply be to ensure that Horseshoe Lake Park it remains as a public outdoor recreation use. So that's a pretty low burden. And then I also wanted to mention that, as Joyce referenced, the 50% match is not the City of Cleveland's responsibility. The investment by the sewer district is qualifying as that match. So there's no cost to the City of Cleveland and very little likelihood of future obligations for the trail system that's proposed. So with that, we'd like to open it up to any questions.
Thank you. I have Councilman Kerry McCormick and then Councilman Michael Polensek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mayor and team. Welcome to the table. Hopefully you heard a little bit of that conversation before. I always find them fascinating. So through the chairman, fully support this ordinance. I had no idea we owned this park. I've jogged this park before. Through the chair to the mayor, does the City of Cleveland doesn't border any of this, does it?
Not this portion of Shea.
Right.
We have some other borders, but
So
not.
I don't want to open up a can of worms here, Mr. President, but chair to the director, why do we own a park in Shaker Heights?
So, Mr. Chairman, the councilman, great question. But a lot of the lands in this area were acquired by the Rockefeller family.
Okay.
And they were gifted to the city of Cleveland.
Okay.
And that gift contains deed restrictions that require that it's owned by the city of Cleveland for
interesting,
park
'cause
purposes.
Chair to
So-
the director, I was going to ask, have you
Yeah.
ever thought about giving this to Shaker Heights? I mean, I can imagine how City of Cleveland residents would feel if Shaker Heights owned, Lincoln Park and Tremont. That would be a weird setup. So have we thought about, is it legally bound to remain in the city's hands?
Through the chairman and the councilman, so I believe there is a way to unravel the wishes of the Rockefeller family, but even since the 40s, this was just the way that
Okay.
all three cities agreed would be a good way to keep the Rockefeller wishes in place, but also put really the improvements and the recreational nature of these areas on the two cities in which they're located.
Thank you. President, I'll wrap by just saying this is a beautiful park. It is really a beautiful park. And I'll say, if you want to see some of the prettiest homes in Northeast Ohio that you can't afford, they are along this park. So anyways, thank you, Chair.
All right. Before I go to Councilman Polensek, I do know that this was relieved, I believe, by Councilman Bishop. Councilman Bishop, did you have any comments?
Yes, Mr. President. I do have some questions. I too have had the opportunity to go to this park, and it's a beautiful place. One question that I do have is that you have a body of water east of Lee Road, right near South Woodland. It's between South Woodland and I can't remember the cross street, but you have a body of water over there. That is not going to be affected by this, is it? Through the chair.
I can answer that. No, that is called Green Lake, and that is not affected by this.
Okay. Now, is that body of water, is that getting dried out, or is that going to be maintained over the course of several years to come?
Is maintained. The sewer district a few years ago helped us improve that body of water, and so that will remain water.
Okay. All right, Mr. President, I don't have any readiness, and I do support this fully for the city of Shaker Heights. And good morning, Mayor. It's good to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have Councilman Michael Polensek.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, the Honorable Mayor, and to Jamie DeRosa. Going back to Councilman McCormick's line of questioning, so the property was we have an actual deed for the property?
Through the chairman and the councilman, yes, all of these lands were deeded from the Rockefeller family, not all in one transaction, but from the Rockefeller family to the city of Cleveland. And if you recall, the park that we call Rockefeller Park, it's really an extension of what we call Rockefeller Park.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, so because I was, as a child, obviously my family was from the Glenville neighborhood, and I can remember going to Forest Hills because I thought that's where Rockefeller lived, was in Forest Hill. His house was in Forest Hills. Was that correct?
Through the chairman, Councilman, I believe that's right. I don't
Okay.
recall if it's Cleveland Heights or East Cleveland, but in that, Karen? Yes.
Thank you, sorry. Yes, the Rockefellers did have a house in Forest Hill. It was a summer
Okay.
home.
So is Forest Hills near this site?
It's in the city of Cleveland Heights and East Cleveland. It's not next to or adjacent to these properties.
Okay, but this is all part of what was deeded at the time.
Through the chairman, to the councilman, yes. There's additional lands that are outside of this area. For instance, the track and field at the Roxborough School.
Okay.
That's also part of the Rockefeller land that is owned by the city of Cleveland and used for recreational purposes by the school and the community.
Okay. Well, obviously, the chair supports it. My colleagues support it. I support it. I think it's a wonderful project, and I'm hoping. Do you have any time frame? What would be the time frame on this?
Thank you. The time frame is that the grant was due this year. We'll find out in 2025, and the SOAR district will bid the project, including all these amenities, in late 25 and construct in 2026.
Okay, wonderful. Wholeheartedly supported, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, and I believe that is all of the questions. And I do want to state myself, I utilize that park as well. A lot of people who live in that Buckeye Shaker Woodland Hills community, by me living on Larchmere, Ward 6 resident, we utilize that park a lot. So a lot of Cleveland residents do utilize that, and really want to admire the mayor as well as Cleveland Heights. We really have a very good synergy and partnership. I want to take a point of personal privilege to thank the mayor as well as our administration for the cross-border police agreement that I know a lot of us have been working for years. Now, if we can get a couple of those other ideas you and I have been talking about, we'll be in a great place.
Keep working on it.
But thank you so much. Here, seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1328-2024 stands approved. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm going to start making a little bit of time, ladies and gentlemen, since we had a spirited session this morning.
Mr. Chairman, I have a point of information.
Point of information.
Just as a reminder to all members, please sign all committees that you serve on. All committees. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Next up is 1323-2024. Thank you, Mayor. 2024. This is by Council Members Conwell, Bishop, and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Works to execute a joint use agreement and other required documents to permit the Greek Garden Association of Greater Cleveland to install a natural stone frieze at the Greek Cultural Garden and to accept funding from the Ohio Department of Natural Resources for this purpose. I believe we're joined by Assistant Director Laird and Ms. DeGennaro and Jim Trachis. How you guys doing today?
Doing great. Thank you.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Chair, I just want to hand it right over to Commissioner DeGennaro. She's going to be able to introduce our guests and be able to talk more about what this project is.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you, Director. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I have with me Jim Trachis from the Greek Garden Association of Cleveland Incorporated, a nonprofit corporation that manages the Greek Garden. The Greek Garden is part of the cultural gardens in Rockefeller Park, which we just talked about a little bit ago. The Greek Garden was established in 1939 as part of the gardens, with plans to install a large natural stone frieze depicting 34 figures from ancient Greece and their contributions toward modern-day democracy, science, ethics, medicine, et cetera. However, due to wartime shortages, the frieze was never installed. Recently, the Greek Garden Association was awarded a grant, a state capital funding grant, which will be administered through ODNR. The grant is for $250,000, and this will allow the association to complete and install the frieze in the cultural garden, the Greek cultural garden. ODNR requires a joint use agreement between the city as landowner and the association in order to award the funding. And so this legislation authorizes the Director of Public Works to enter into a joint use agreement with the association for the funding. This is in Ward 10, Councilman Plancic's ward, and
Hairston.
I'm sorry, Councilman Hairston. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Councilman Bishop, this was in municipal services.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we relieved this piece of legislation. We fully support this piece.
All right, thank you. Councilman Conwell, this is in Ward 9, actually.
It is. I approve it, although I never ever, he knows me, been knowing me for decades.
I got you, Mike.
But, I approve it 100%. I just wanna, get invited there to see it. So whatever I can do to help. So I'm there. Let me turn the microphone. I approve it 100%. I'm there.
Thank you, Councilman. Mr. Tracus, did you want to add anything before we move?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm happy to answer any other questions. I just wanted to let you know that this is a $750,000 investment in the city of Cleveland. In addition to the $250,000 from the state of Ohio, there will be much more public improvements of the gardens with the permission of the city, of course, through the Landmarks Commission. And we view this as an opportunity, as an educational opportunity for the people of the city of Cleveland. We plan to install educational kiosks so that you can learn more about Greek culture, how it's contributed to the founding of Cleveland, founding of the United States, and to all the Greek Americans in the Cleveland area who have contributed over the years.
Thank you. Councilman Michael Polensek.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I know where the garden's at, and I know it's been a great asset to the cultural gardens. I know Mr. Tracus has been involved in the Greek community for a very long time. I think it's a wonderful project. I wholeheartedly support it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1323-2024 stands approved. Thank you so much. Appreciate you guys. All right, we'll now move to ordinance number 1048-2024 by Councilmembers Slife, Bishop, Hairston, and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Capital Projects to enter into one or more agreements with the Board of Park Commissioners of the Cleveland Metropolitan Park District regarding a city contribution of funding to implement the Old Lorain Connector Trail and authorizing the director to accept the donation of a temporary easement from the Metro Parks for a period of 10 years located within the project area for the purpose of implementing the project. Ms. DeGennaro.
Thank you. We are,
Kick us off, and then whoever is
yeah,
up, they
for
can
sure.
join us in a
Okay,
minute.
so yes, this legislation would authorize the Director of Capital Projects to accept a 10-year easement from Cleveland Metro Parks and contribute funds for the construction of the Old Lorain Connector Trail. It's a 1/3 mile multi-use trail that goes from River Edge Road to Little Met Golf Drive and will connect the Cleveland Clinic Fairview Hospital and the Camps Corners neighborhood to Rocky River Reservation and the Emerald Necklace Trail System. The trail establishes a safe connection for CAM's residents to the reservation by traversing the area's steep topography, and will also provide a connection for the employees of Fairview Hospital to the park. Cleveland Metro Parks will donate a 2.58-acre 10-year easement to the city over their property for the trail and for related improvements, and the city will contribute funding for construction, along with project partners Cleveland Metro Parks, Cuyahoga County, and Cleveland Clinic. Cleveland Metro Parks will maintain the trail and the improvements post-construction, and this project is in Ward 17, Councilman Slife's ward, and he's fully supportive.
All right. Mr. Chairman, if I could just say a few words. At the last committee that we were at, the question came up what funding was being used for the city's $750,000 contribution to the project. And so I wanted to provide that information. Apologies it didn't come in writing to council earlier. But what we did was we looked at some trail projects that were approved several years back that for one reason or the other either had access funds or were no longer considered a critical gap. And so this being such a wonderful trail amenity being championed by Councilman Slife, we reallocated those funds to this project. So $500,000 came from what was called the Max Hayes Connector Trail, which is originally to get from the Max Hayes School over to 65th Street, but with the Red Line Greenway, is that what it's called? Project, that trail was no longer deemed critical. There was $500,000 allocated to something called the Newton Avenue Trail, which was championed by Case Western several years back, but their improvements in and around the campus also made that not a critical gap. RTA had a project called the Cedar Hill Bike Trail, which was completed, and there was $7,364 that was excess project funds. We borrowed $92,636 from the Booth Avenue Connector Trail, which is part of Metro Parks' Raise Bundle. So in an effort to use those bond funds quicker rather than later, we reallocated those, and you'll see future bond allocations for that trail. Additionally, similarly for the Euclid Creek Greenway project, which is not ready to go into construction, we borrowed $100,000 from that project to put it towards this project that's ready to go into construction. So likewise, you'll see a future bond request for the funds that are needed for the Euclid Creek Greenway project. So with that, that's how we came up with the $750,000 for this project, because the project is ready to go into construction.
Put your mic on.
Sorry about that.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just acknowledge our guest, Andrew Stolke he is a project developer with Cleveland Metro Parks, and we also have at the table Phil Kidd, who is our Trails Program Manager from MoCap. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay.
And Chairman, just one more thing. I have to acknowledge that it was Councilman Dale Miller's ARPA funds that is the county's $750,000 going into the project.
Thank you. All right, before I go to Councilman Slife, who did a yeoman's job of really pushing this, I want to give him the close if I could. Is that okay with you, Councilman? I do want to make sure that I check in with Bishop and Hairston. Both of these, I believe, one was heard in municipal services, but it was relieved in DPS. So, Councilman Bishop?
Yes, Mr. President. We heard this in municipal services, and we fully support this piece of legislation. And congratulations to Councilman Slight.
Councilman Hairston, you wanted to relieve this?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Because of the timing, I was supportive of relieving it because it had just passed municipal services and had not had a chance to get to DPS yet, so fully support.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Michael Polensek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the director, the $100,000 from the Euclid Beach Connector, Trail Connector. It was my understanding that that project, and please tell me what leg that's coming out of, because I thought that leg was going to start.
Through the Chairman and Councilman, so it's the Euclid Creek project, not the Euclid Beach Connector project. Euclid Beach Connector project is the county-run project that will go into construction shortly. So it did not come out of that project.
But I'm talking about the trail that's coming down from Euclid Avenue. Is this?
Yes. So
I was told that was supposed to start.
We are heading into design, and I'll have Phil give an update, Mr. Kidd, an update on the status of the design for that project. Yep.
Thank you, through the chair, to the councilman. Yes, that is in feasibility. It's wrapping up right now, and then we will move immediately into detailed design and construction, and that's going to be the next round of funding that the Metro Parks is looking at, is for that detailed design and construction. They secured $19.5 million in the last round for Slavic Village and Booth Avenue, and so feasibility is still wrapping up on Euclid, but it's still on track, so there's no delay.
Okay, but to the director, if the $100,000 is coming out of that pot, then how is that going to be made up?
So, Mr. Chairman, the funding, to the councilman, the funding for that was set up, I believe, in 2019. Yep. And so, as we've discussed at the table in your caucus, that there is a need to spend down bond funds and not let them sit there for a project to, come to fruition. So it was determined to be fiscally responsible to reallocate those funds to this project and then seek the 100,000 back through a future bond request, which would happen in 2025.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that the council leadership is aware of that, because we made a commitment, because I've been working on that thing since Ken Silliman was the mayor's chief of staff, that project. That's a long time, okay? And it keeps getting bounced and bounced and bounced back because of other priorities. But I just want, so I'm here to support Councilman Slide's effort. There's no doubt about that. I'm here to support that. But I just want to make sure that you guys don't get amnesia when it comes to filling that $100,000 gap.
Mr. Chairman, the councilman, we are so excited that we are this close to going into detailed design.
Okay.
We definitely will not get amnesia on your project.
So because I will get out
took a lot of work.
I will get out the electric prod at that point
Yeah, I
to make
understand.
you aware of it. Okay, thank you,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
All right, we're going to hear a close from Councilman Charles Slife, and I want to commend him. He really worked hard on this project, and it's great to see a councilman get the outcome when they put the effort in like this. Councilman Slife.
Thank you. This actually, the first piece of legislation I sponsored was the feasibility study for this. So this has been in the works since day one. But just briefly, right around the time I came into council, there had been a study from the Trust for Public Land that identified census tracts in Cleveland that had limited park access. Cam's Corners was one of them, which was a point of frustration because it's adjacent to a metro park, but due to topography, you can't get there. So this was a partnership between the metro parks, the county, the city, and then also Cleveland Clinic is contributing $500,000 towards the project build as well. That will install this path from the neighborhood down to the Rock River Valley at Little Met so people can connect to the Metro Parks path. It broadens the walk shed, but then also the Metro Parks has these maps for, if you live within walking distance or biking distance of a Metro Park. And with the biking spread, this pushes the accessibility out beyond Ward 17 into 16 and even 11. So I think it's a great project. People are looking forward to it. And I thank you to all my colleagues for your support. And just I share Councilman Polensik's desire to, make sure that we're bird dogging to ensure that all of comparable projects are crossing the finish line citywide. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again, Councilman Slife. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1048-2024 stands approved. Please sign on. All right, next one is ordinance number 1240-2024 by Councilmember Santana, Harrison, and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance to amend the title and section 1 of ordinance number 1153-2023 passed November 13th, 2023, relating to a grant agreement for the Northern Ohio Blanket Mill mixed-use neighborhood project located in the Clark-Fulton neighborhood. Are our guests here from Economic Development and Blanket Mills? Mr. McNair joined us at the table with his guest. I believe Kevin Hudson from the Levin Group. Mr. McNair, please announce your guest that you have with us today.
Thank you, Council President, members of the committee. I am joined here today by Kevin Hudson of the Levin Group, as well as Bobby Bruno from our staff. And we are here today to talk about the Blanket Mills project in Councilwoman Santana's ward. It is a fantastic project that is supporting affordable housing in the Clark-Fulton neighborhood, as well as a variety of commercial uses on the ground floor. We're here today looking at a contract amendment. Originally, there was a $1 million ARPA grant that was supplied going directly to the Levin Group. We are changing that to go to the Metro West Community Development Organization and elect as equity for them in the project. And I'll leave it if Mr. Hudson has anything he'd like to add.
Thank you, Director. Good morning, Council President and Council members. The Northern Ohio Blanket Mill project, we've come to you a couple of times regarding the project. It is a mixed use, as the Director said, of 60 affordable housing units on the second and third floor of the building, with commercial tenants, will be nonprofit social service providers on the ground floor, serving the needs of the near west side. Metro West Community Development Organization has been a 25% partner in our project from the beginning. They share in fees and surplus cash, and has been a great partner in helping connect the community and address community needs. And this is just an amendment so we can make sure that this grant appropriately goes through Metro West so they can contribute into the project.
Thank you. And Councilman Harrison, this was in your committee, and I believe you
Yes.
believed it?
Yes, Mr. Chair. We are all thoroughly aware of the Blanket Mills project, fully supportive, and a change that needed to be made, and fully support. Thank you.
Thank you. And another great project for my colleague, Majority Whip Jasmine Santana.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to my colleagues that actually approved the support for $1 million to this ARPA project. I had a chance to tour the building. This was about a two-decade vacant building, and it's our largest vacant building in the neighborhood, and now it's like 60 apartments, beautiful, and in the commercial space, and a neighborhood family practice will be moving in, Spanish American Committee, so this is definitely a catalyst transformational project in Ward 14, so I support the amendment.
Great job, Council Lady. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1240-2024 stands approved. Please sign on. Thank you both. We'll move to Lee Weingart and Steve Davis. Thank you. And Lee Weingart and Steve Davis.
Team Wendy.
And now, hold up 1 second. All right. This is ordinance number 1275-2024 by council members Harrison and Griffin by departmental request and emergency ordinance authorizing the directors of economic development and finance to enter into an agreement under the job creation income tax credit incentive program with Team Wendy LLC and/or its designee to assist with project financing for the facility located at 17000 St. Clair Avenue. Mr. McNair, please proceed.
Thank you, Council President, members of the committee. I am joined here today by Steve Davis, the Vice President of Finance for Team Wendy, as well as Lee Weingart, one of their project consultants, as well as Bobby Bruno from our staff, who's done a lot of work in this. Team Wendy, I'm going to let them talk a little bit about the company here in just a second, but this is a big win from the Job Creation Incentive Tax Credit that we helped pass last year that is going to bring 200-plus new jobs into Ward 10 that otherwise would not have happened without this credit, also saving 200-plus jobs in Ward 10 going on here. The total value of this credit, as you know, is based on actual jobs that are created over the course of time. This is not an upfront payment. These are credits for on payroll taxes that come in on the back end, but is estimated at about $812,000 over the course of 5 years on this credit. And again, we are really excited to help Team Wendy stay in Cleveland and expand in Cleveland. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Davis to talk a little bit about Team Wendy.
Yeah, thank you. So Team Wendy, we were founded in Cleveland in 1997. We came from a tragedy. One of our founder's daughter passed away in a ski accident. The company was founded in her honor, named Wendy, in order to provide head protection, in order to study traumatic brain injury. And the company's gone through many iterations, but today we provide ballistic and non-ballistic head protection into the military, law enforcement, FEMA, Australia Defense Force overseas, and many other industries across the country and across the world.
All right. Mr. Weingart, did you want to add anything?
Just want to add that, thank you. So Team Wendy has locations in California, Michigan, New Hampshire, and Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio. The growth was going to be outside of California because of the cost of doing business in California. So we looked at locations in Michigan, New Hampshire, and of course Cleveland. The disadvantage that Cleveland had was an income tax at the city level and the state level. The savings in Michigan would have been about $10 million over 10 years to locate there. New Hampshire would have been about $20 million over 10 years. So we got an incentive from the state of Ohio of about $5.5 million. We're seeking about $800,000 incentive from the city of Cleveland to try and balance that out to bring those 200 jobs from California to Cleveland instead of Michigan or New Hampshire.
Thank you. And before I go to Councilman Harrison, who relieved this, I do want to make sure that I ask. This is Dan Moore's, Mr. Moore's company?
Dan Moore's former company. It was acquired
sold
by
it?
a UK company called Avon Protection.
Okay, so Mr. Moore is not involved in this as much as he used to?
He is not.
Okay. interesting because he's been a forerunner for this for a long time, and we always like our homegrown business folks to be able to participate when this happens, but I think he's kind of been moving away and kind of retiring a little bit.
Think of it as a homecoming of Team Wendy back to Cleveland.
Please send him our best, and this is something I think is
We will.
good for our city. All right, Councilman Michael Polisic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the director and to the representatives here of Team Wendy. I'm assuming, is that correct, Team Wendy?
Correct, yes.
Okay. I worked with Dan years ago when I was councilman there a long time ago to help bring him into that, buy that abandoned building. And so I'm very keenly aware. In fact, I worked there in the engineering department as a very, very young man. So I know the property very well. I think this is a wonderful addition to the St. Clair corridor. I want to thank Councilman Harrison for his engagement, his concern. My question is, in the course of this project, will anything be done to the front Art Deco building?
So on the campus, there's actually two buildings. There's
Right.
the building one, and that front will stay as it is.
Okay.
The building next to it is also being renovated.
Building 5.
Building 5, thank
Right.
you. I don't want to get into the lingo, but
Right.
yeah, Building 5 is being renovated. So we may look at doing some things on the front as far as signage specifically for
Right.
Team Wendy to enhance the look, but from the front of that building, no, that's going to remain the same.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I think this is a great project for the Nottingham neighborhood. That plant was originally graphite bronze, then Gould, and then became an abandoned plant. And thank goodness for, as the chairman indicated, Dan Moore was able to pick it up and renovate that really historic building. So again, I want to commend Anthony Harrison and my colleague and everyone involved in this project. It's great for the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to hear from Councilman McCormick, and then I'd like for Councilman Harrison to close us out.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be brief. Great project. Really excited to support this here today. And I'll just note to the Economic Development Director, I think this is another example of not only great folks investing in the city, but how the tools that are being created with ED are really effective and good. And I would just say that, is there a way that we can even scale, think about additional tools? If these are new and retained jobs in the city of Cleveland, that's just a win-win-win-win.
Yes.
So thinking creatively about how do we even scale these type of tools to even higher level to help support businesses looking to invest in the city of Cleveland. So, but again, thank you, gentlemen. Great project. So fully support.
Thank you. Councilman Conwell and Councilman Harrison to close us out.
Yeah, thank you very, very much. How many jobs were you talking about again? Can you reiterate that to me?
Yeah, I think we are looking at, and I've run the numbers, it's probably a little bit above that, but at least 200 additional jobs on top of the 200 that are currently sitting there.
And you will start when?
We'll start now over the next 6 months. We hope to be ramped up by June of 2025, so it should be a relatively quick ramp.
And their job, their workload will be doing what? What do they need to do?
Yeah, so we manufacture the helmets, so a lot of it will be manufacturing jobs, but some of it will be additional support for engineering, because not only do we manufacture the helmets, we try to develop the technology on ballistic and head protection, so pulling engineering jobs as well. In addition to that, we've kind of created a culture of training our employees on continuous improvement, and we've hired a lot from within, so the goal is not only to bring in the people, to have the entry-level jobs, but to then continue their development into leading a line or leading an entire product. We actually just created that structure and promoted all 5 people from within the company.
What's the average wage in there, through the chair, to...
So the average, I don't want to state the average. At the lowest wage we come in at for a full-time employee is currently $18 an hour.
That's $36,000 a year?
Yes. In addition to that, there's a 5% bonus that goes from the hour, from every person is eligible for at least a 5% bonus. On the hourly workers, that's based on safety and production, but that provides an additional, I would say it's 90 cents, so it's almost $19 an hour.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. Plus the medical benefits, which I don't have exact data, but from my experience, are very competitive. I know we froze them for 3 years, and we did have to increase this year, but the company took 80% of that increase and only passed on about 20% to the employee. So I think it's not only wage-wise, but benefit-wise, it's very competitive. There's actually a 5% fully vested match on their 401k, so a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, I believe in the power of work. I believe in that 100%. Is there a way that you could do a job fair next year and so we can try to put people to work? It's a great project, young man.
Yeah, absolutely. We've historically gone through kind of attempt to hire programs, and we've used a couple different temporary agencies. We did do job fairs with those agencies probably 6 to 9 months ago, but obviously happy to continue to do those, and if there's opportunities, would be more than interested. One of our biggest struggles is, as we ramp up, is continually finding people to come in and work, and so anything we can do to continue that process, we're on board.
Yeah, work is therapeutic, so I'm there with this 100%. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman. Councilman Hairston, you relieved this from DPS, and this is also an exciting project in your ward. Please proceed, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, fully supportive of this piece. The group reached out early on in the year, had a chance to get familiar with the project, know Team Wendy well. They've been there in the neighborhood for quite some time, as Councilman Belizick said. Mr. Moore came in and took over a blighted building and has, put several different companies there from the back end to the front end. I would like to talk about some exterior, enhancements as we go along. It's although the bushes and the hedges stay very trimmed and neat, looks very nice. The grounds folks keep the place up really, really nice. Like to give it a little bit more life on the front end as you come down St. Clair. And so happy to talk to that. Fully supportive, Mr. Chair. Glad to see that the business is staying at the property and that the property won't turn into what it used to be years ago, and that was just a big blighted mess. And so, ask the committee for support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Appreciate it. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1275-2024 stands approved. Good luck, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Looking forward to working with you. Believe we'll still catch up, other than the grocery store. All right. The wife still have the business?
She does.
All right, I got to make a visit.
Right now.
Holiday visit.
Cookies, cakes, whatever you want. You come
And
down.
I eat none of it, but I will buy some. All right. Next up is ordinance number 1244-2024, as amended by council members Conwell, Hairston, and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Community Development to enter into a development agreement with Right to Development Corporation, LLC, or its designee for the sale and redevelopment of city-owned parcels which are currently in the land reutilization program and located on Superior Avenue near East 105th Street for the Glen Haven Development Project, and authorizing the mayor and the commissioner of purchases and supplies to sell city-owned properties no longer needed for public use to Right to Development Corp., LLC, or its designee. Mr. Green, and you'll be introducing our guest to us today.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. To my left, I have Sandra Madison with Robert Madison Architects. To my right is Bridget Grant, who is the lead developer. And to her right is Billy Gilliam and Derek Kirkland, who are both on the clinical side of this development.
Awesome. Before I move forward, I do need to read this amendment, and it says that there is no legal objection to this legislation if amended as follows. 1, in the title, line 9, in the whereas clause, line 6, and in section 1, line 6, strike the comma after the in Haven and replace it with a period in all 3 places. And it's dated 11/22/24 by Kevin Roberts, Chief Assistant Director of Law. Mr. Green, please proceed, and if your guest would like to make any comments.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This request is for a development agreement with Right to Development. for the land that we have on Superior Avenue near East 105. That land would be for the development of Glen Haven, which is a respite center, along with retail on the ground floor, on the street level. We've been working with Right To for several years now through their due diligence, which includes community meetings, working on their funding, construction drawings, and things of that nature. They are now ready to move forward, so this development agreement is to help them secure their final funding for the project. So just to orient you, the land is on Superior Avenue. There are 10 parcels in the land bank, which are near East 105th and Superior on Superior Avenue on the north side. The purpose of this, again, is that the land bank has the authority to sell, but not to enter into a development agreement, which is what brings us to this body. This is an aerial view of those same sites. There is a parcel in the center which they are working independently to acquire, but the 10 parcels sit here on this land. So I'm going to pass this over to Bridget Grant, who will carry on a discussion about what the project entails.
Thank you. Ms. Grant?
Good morning to the chair and to the committee. We are a 3-story mixed-use development for respite care. Our focus is on mental health, dual diagnosed, and clients with other disabilities. Our first floor contains some retail, which will also be used partially as an incubator permanent transition space. Our second floor, which will house both men and women, has 2 separate sides to it. There are 2 rooms per bed, so we'll have approximately 80 to 90 beds on the second floor. And our third floor, which will be individual rooms, they will be vented to the outside, and that floor will hold approximately 35 clients.
Thank you. And we do have slides on this on your computer. Anything else you guys want to add?
Absolutely. So we are a privately owned facility. We are for-profit, so our target population extends beyond the city and the county borders. It also goes throughout the state. So our clients can be referred to us from any of our community partners, which includes hospitals, assisted living facilities, the shelters, but all of our stuff is done on a referral basis only. So unlike some of our community partners, our clients cannot walk in directly off the street. They do have to come via the referral process so that we could have a coordination of care internally.
And so, though this again shows where the site would go on Superior Avenue near East 105, the schematics there for the building are very preliminary. They still have to go through planning and design review to get to those final construction drawings. But this is just giving you an indication of what is envisioned for the site as Bridget has described there.
All right, anything else?
Okay. So if you have any questions for the team here, we can respond to those.
Sure. And the other team that you have with us, Ms. Madison, is the architect for this?
Yes.
So everybody knows Ms. Madison is a very renowned, well-renowned architect from the Robert Madison International Group.
Correct.
Father-in-law, right?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Did you want to add anything?
No.
Okay.
Other than
All
I'm
right.
just happy to be before you today. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Did any of your other team want to make any statements?
Would you all like to speak to the clinical level of care for our clients? Any other statements?
Good morning, Chairman, to the committee members, that one of the benefits of this program that is independent and different from the other type of services that are in the city of Cleveland is that it really does involve the social determinants of health. It is not just in alignment, it's not just in parallel, but it is integrated. So that makes it very distinct. And the point with that, the reason why that's really important is that it allows us to look at health equity, it allows us to look at health literacy, it allows us to look at all those things that are really when the individuals who will be working with these clients, that they are each assigned a system of care, which is very unique. And it does not step on the individuals who are doing the services outside. The goal is to bring them in and collaborate with them. So it's not to take away from their services. So the thing that was significant and important to me to be a part of this project is that it does include the social determinant of health. It does look at health equity, health literacy, economic disparities, and things of that nature. So that's one thing I wanted to make sure we add. Derek can talk more if you want to speak to the level of care, but I want to speak to the higher version of it.
Well, this level of care also truly serves as a stopgap in our continuum of care within Cleveland in terms of behavioral health. So we would specifically be targeting clients that didn't qualify, they didn't meet the criteria for hospitalization, but weren't ready to reintegrate back into the community as well. So they continue to receive support here in this model before returning to the community.
Okay. All right, so we'll take questions, but first and foremost, Councilman Hairston, you relieved this from DPNS. Did you have any comments?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Fully support. I've heard some information about this project as they were working to put this together. Happy to see this team here this morning, many of them that we know from the neighborhood here in the Glenville community. Very active, very engaged, very supportive of the design, the concept. Councilman Conwell did talk with me about this as well, and I know that we were on our last kind of sessions for the year, and so it was important to me that this continue to move through the process, and fully supportive, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Hairston. Councilman Conwell, I know you've been working on this project for quite some time.
Yeah, long time. To my colleagues here, to echo Councilmember Harrison's words, they have held several meetings in the Glenville community with all the key stakeholders and partners in the community. Matter of fact, Mr. President and colleagues, they have knocked on doors in the community, talking with residents so they can find out what's going on. They met at Bethany Baptist Church. How many times?
Once in person, twice virtually.
Was it twice?
Virtually, once in person. Yes.
Once in person, twice virtually. They met with neighbors to neighbors to talk with them as well. They did a survey analysis. So I want to give them a chance. As we talked about to my colleagues several years ago, we want to give African American females a break also and a chance. And I want to see this work in my neighborhood. And my neighborhood is growing and growing and growing. But you know what? We don't have any African American developers or African American female developers in my community. So I asked to give, matter of fact, you'll work out the contract through community development, and we need to push to try to put our mouth where we're talking about helping out African American females move forward with this project here. So I ask you, I fully support this project, and I ask my colleagues to support this project as well. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Councilman. And we also do believe in really supporting African-American female developers, so I think this is a great opportunity. I don't see any more questions. Therefore, ordinance number 1244-2024 as amended stands approved. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good luck with everything. Look forward to seeing this project.
Thank you.
All right. Last up is, or not last up, but we're going to do a couple more pieces before we move on to take a break for a moment, is ordinance number 1311-2024 by Councilmember Spencer, Hairston, and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the mayor and the commissioner of purchases and supplies to acquire and reconvey properties presently owned by Shoreway Tower LLC and/or its designee located at 1200 West 76th Street Cleveland, Ohio, 44120, for the purpose of entering into the chain of title prior to the adoption of tax increment financing legislation authorized under Section 5709.41 of the revised code for the Shoreway Tower LLC project. Director McNair and Mr. Smotzer.
Thank you, Council President. I am joined here today by Adam Comer from J-Rock Development, as well as Kevin Schmatzer from our office to talk about the chain of title legislation, first part of the tax increment financing for the Shoreway Tower development, which is a roughly $90 million development with 110 new apartments that will be coming in the Detroit Shoreway neighborhood. This is a project that we have worked extensively on with Councilwoman Spencer, both, in kind of getting to this point, as well as the future community benefits agreement that will be shared as we move forward on the part 2 of the TIF. But with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Comer to talk a little bit about the project before we move on.
Sure. Hi, Council. Thank you for having me. Appreciate your time. I'll keep it relatively brief. I'm sure you have a packed agenda. So the Shoreway Tower project is a 110-unit addition to the existing Shoreway project. We anticipate up to 5% of those units being affordable at 100% AMI, and the project will also include a public art gallery space that will feature local Cleveland artist artwork, as well as roughly 4,000 square feet of commercial space. The project will of course, bring more residents kind of close to the lakefront and kind of further activate what is already a very exciting and kind of growing neighborhood in the Battery Park area.
Mr. Smotzer, you want to add anything?
To the chairman, I'm just going to echo in the comments that Director McNair made, and Adam, this is a great project. I've been very fortunate and blessed to work on this and present to you.
Great. All right, Councilman Hairston, this was, I know you made a decision to relieve this. Did you have any comments on this? All right, Councilwoman Spencer, are you aware of this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much for adding this to the agenda today. And we will be back in the new year to talk about the next piece of legislation associated with this project in the tax increment financing, as well as the community benefits agreement. So I will look forward to further discussion at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Kerry McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chair to the team, is this a new build or rehab? I'm not as familiar with this.
To the councilman through the chair, if that's correct. It's a little combination of both. So it's essentially a new project that will be attached to the existing Shoreway building at the ground floor. So it's, for all intents and purposes, a brand new build. Okay, but is this the big, what is the building called? Shoreway Tower is sort of the tentative name. Okay, but that's like what's currently kind of boarded up. Or not, I don't know if it's under. No. So what am I thinking of? This is the project, you're thinking of the Westinghouse building. Yes, that's not this. This is a little bit further west. Okay. Yep. Okay. Not that project. Got it. And Mr. Chairman, to the director, so this is a new build. What is currently in this, and where it's at?
Through the chair to the councilman, it's a surface parking lot.
Okay, so
so this is by West 76th Street is the Shoreway, is the existing building, and then there's a surface parking lot to the northwest of that, of which the new construction tower will go on.
Okay, so Chairman, I fully support this project, but just to emphasize, Director, how many jobs are we displacing here?
Through the chair to Councilman Cormack, there are 0 jobs.
How many jobs are we adding here? There will be jobs added on the site?
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, how much income tax are we losing from this?
Through Chair Councilman Cormack, there is 0. And while
Mr. Chairman, to the director, are we going to be adding income tax with this project?
Through the chair to Councilman Cormack, yes.
Mr. Chairman, or myself to the director, are we adding value on this parcel through this legislation?
Through the chair to Councilman McCormack, yes, about $90 million.
Okay, and chair to the director, will the school district derive new revenue from this project?
Through the chair to Councilman McCormack, the Cleveland Metropolitan School District is anticipated to receive about $12.7 million over the life of this TIF.
And chairman to the director, would that revenue be available without this project?
Through the chair to Councilman McCormack, no.
Okay, thank you. Wasn't picking on the project. It's a great project. It's just a good time to emphasize that building on surface parking lots is a win for many reasons in the city of Cleveland. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Council, I think that's Councilman Polinsky.
What, Mr. Chairman, to the director, whoever, what are the starting rents?
Through the chair to the councilman, starting rents anticipated. Some of that work is, of course, still to be finalized. The development kind of process will take some time, but we anticipate this is a primarily market rate project with starting rents on the low end in the mid to high $1,000 for a studio or one bedroom apartment.
1,000 for a studio.
Or one bedroom apartment, correct.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1311-2024 will be heard for consideration for the entire council tonight. Regarding 1311? Quick point, go ahead, Councilman.
To the point, to the chair, how much money is the city giving to this project? Just want to make sure I got clarification.
So through the chair to Councilman Starr, at this point, the city's given nothing. This is just the chain of title to allow the city to take ownership for a day to kind of set the value. We will come back for a Part 2 piece of legislation for the TIF, but the net present value of the estimated TIF is $1.7 million. That comes only after the value is created by the project.
Okay, and to the point, I know you said when you come back, just want to put a point out that when you come back, I would definitely be looking for a community benefits package that makes sense, and something that can help the community as we develop, because I think that is very important, and we've heard a lot of that throughout a lot of different public comments at council meetings. So I definitely will be looking forward to seeing a community benefits package for this project as well. Thank you.
Chair to Councilman Starr, we've spent an extensive amount of time working with the developer and Councilwoman Spencer on creating what we think is a very unique and exciting community benefits agreement.
All right, thank you. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1311-2024 stands approved. Director, if you could stay at the table, we'll go to 1327.
Thank you, Councilman.
-2024. You're welcome. By council members Conwell, Bishop, and Griffin. By departmental request, an emergency ordinance to enter into an amendment to the grant agreement entered into under ordinance number. Oh, this is, okay, got it. Okay. Enter into an amendment to the grant agreement entered under ordinance number 753-2021, passed September 20th, 2021, as amended, relating to applying for and accepting a grant from the Cleveland Foundation for the development of the African American Cultural Gardens. And I believe we're joined by the biggest champion of the garden, Mr. Ewing, and also Mr. Obi Shelton. But Mr. Laird, if you can kick us off, and Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Chair. This piece is for the African American Cultural Garden was established after a task force of prominent business and civic leaders and community activists have identified the garden's mission as promoting education, interest in African American culture and heritage and spirit. Friendship among all people, and this passage of this legislation will allow the city of Cleveland to transfer $325,000 from a grant that we accepted years ago directly to the foundation. I have here Mr. Shelton to be able to talk more about it, but this is something. I also have Andre Reynolds who's been working with this group as well. This is a piece that I'm sure this body is very familiar with. You all donated some resources to it. After some meetings and some time with the Cleveland Foundation and with the organization as well, we feel like the best use of this resource to be able to get this money and this project going faster is to be able to transfer this money to the organization for them to be able to invest it, the Cleveland Foundation to be able to do some things in their capital fund. I'm going to let Mr. Shelton and Mr. Ewing explain that more, but so I'll hand it over to them right now.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Councilman. It's been just about exactly a year since we were at the table asking for an extension on this grant. Since that time, I just wanted you to know that we have received a $500,000 grant from St. Luke's Foundation. That was in June of this year. And we have raised approximately $100,000 on our own, just through online donations and individual donations. It's been pretty hard, but just so that you get a chance to see where we are. You know, that yellow portion over on the left, we were able to complete that at the top of the hill in 2016. If you go down Martin Luther King, you'll be able to see that. The estimated cost of the whole thing is $4 million. We're almost halfway there now. It's challenging. It's a very ambitious project, but we are making headway and we're getting more people on board. Just to give you an idea, this is the upper portion that's already complete. You can go there. That represents the door of no return. It's an abstraction. Again, this is what you can see in the upper portion. This is the artist rendering of how it's going to be. And you see it's very dramatic going from the top of the hill all the way down to the bottom. And you see that middle section, that black section that has a star on it, that is a terrace that is going to be able to seat 300 people, so that it's not just something to go by and look at. It is going to be dramatic and it's going to be spectacular, but it's going to, this is a front view that you would see. So there's a waterfall that falls down there. That's where all this $4 million comes from. And this water all represents everything from the transatlantic slave trade to the symbols of water freedom, the Ohio River, the Great Lakes, that were all symbols of freedom. And then on this, this is the terrace that'll seat 300 people. So an artist rendering shows you what it would be like. Here we would have concerts there. We could have a wedding on that. We could have a reunion. We could have all kinds of parties there. So, you know, once we get this done, it's going to enhance not just the African American community, but anybody could go on there once they, you know, just like the Italian Garden. I've played at a few weddings there. So now I would be able to play at a wedding at this garden. And so if you go by the garden now, you'll see this big sign that says, "Let's finish it." And that's kind of, you know, our battle cry is, let's finish it. And we're driving it home. I'm showing these visuals all around the community, trying to inspire those who have the means to help us get across the finish line, because as some of you articulated very well last year, there are people in the community, in the African American community, who can get us to the finish line. We just have to inspire them and help them see that it's going to benefit them and their families in the future. And then we can get it done. So this, I'm sorry, let me just explain this legislation. So the Cleveland Foundation granted in 2021 a $325,000 grant to the city of Cleveland on behalf of the garden. And it's just been sitting there and not getting any interest while we try to fundraise. And so this allows us, since we last saw you, we set up 2 funds with the Cleveland Foundation. One is a $100,000 endowment fund that will keep the a garden going in perpetuity, right, to maintain it. And then we also set up a money market fund that would be restricted to capital improvement for construction, so that that earns interest. So because a lot of our funds have been in accounts that don't earn interest. And so, you know, as we can get more of that money into that account, we can earn money market interest on that, and it's safe. And as we, you know, as we pound we don't lose anything due to inflation. Did I explain that well?
Yeah, I think.
All right. This was relieved by, Mr. Ewing.
I just want to echo that I could not have gotten a more perfect spokesperson, and I would acquiesce to that.
Okay. All right. I want to make sure I start out with Councilman Bishop. You relieved this from Municipal Services?
Yes, Mr. President, we fully support this piece of legislation.
All right, thank you. I'll let Councilman Conwell close. Councilman Michael Polisi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's a wonderful project. I donated initially toward this project, personally donated toward it. But what I don't understand is, if there's a $325,000, why is it not in an interest-bearing Why is it not, if the city's holding it, why isn't it a sub-fund interest-bearing?
I can.
Want to answer that one, Jim?
So, through the chair to the, yep, there we go. There we go.
To the chair, the councilperson. All of our accounts are interest bearing, but some sub-funds get interest and some don't. So unless it's required under the grant agreement, it would usually default to the general fund. So when we look at all the sub-funds that are out there, if it's required, then the sub-funds get the interest. If not, defaults to the general fund.
So wait a minute, still, I'm confused there. Do we have the 325,000?
Through the chair, the councilperson, yes, that's in the.
But it's not interest, and it's a non-interest bearing account?
Through the chair, the councilperson, it's in a commingled bank account that the entire city uses. And if the grant agreement requires interest, it's an allocated interest. If it's not required interest in the grant agreement, then it is allocated to the general fund.
Okay.
So the interest that's gained on this has went to the general fund.
How long have we had the money?
Through the chair of the councilperson, 2021.
20 what?
Through the chair of the councilperson, 2021.
Well, then, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Gentile, then why don't we move that money into an interest-bearing account so they can make some money?
Through the chair of the councilperson, it has gained interest. The interest is allocated to the general fund. And
But they're not seeing it.
That's correct.
Let's make sure everything runs through the chair. So it's
Mr.
not
Chairman,
back and forth, okay?
but what I'm saying, they're trying to raise funds for this most worthy project. They've been working on this a long time. I can remember when that design first was presented to us, the original, the arch. And those of us who've been out there to see, is Dan Bickerstaff still the?
He is the architect, and he's waiting for it to be done.
So I just think, Mr. Chairman, the money should be in an interest-bearing account. I mean, they would have made some money on this deal. I mean, I just think we have to be more wiser and to assist this.
Absolutely.
Because I'll be the first to tell you, I know how difficult it is to raise money for these gardens. I mean, and then the ones that have been there forever, just trying to maintain them, that is a whole nother story in itself. I know from my engagement with some of the other ethnic groups, just trying to maintain what is there. But we have to try to assist them, and I see no reason why they should not be receiving interest. So if they have to set up a separate sub-fund, then so be it.
Well, through the chair to the councilperson, the whole goal of this legislation is to transfer the money to them so they can, so the Cleveland Foundation can invest it for them and make that.
Okay, okay. Well, that's what I need to get clarified.
Yeah.
Okay, so they will be able to, they'll be able to gain interest on this.
Absolutely. Through the chair to the councilperson.
I'm glad you clarified that, because that's what I was about to
Yeah, I mean,
say.
Okay.
Through the chair to the councilman, the other benefit is the grant reporting requirements with the funds being with the association go away. So
Okay.
at this point, they have not, well, it's going to the funds are going back to the foundation. And when we keep them with the city, we have to report on an annual basis, but the association, the fund's purpose was construction cost. But
Right.
because they have not started construction, every year we would have to renew that agreement because of the initial purpose of the grant.
Okay.
Yeah.
I understand it now. I just want to make sure that you're accruing interest on whatever amount of money that you have.
Absolutely.
Because this is obviously this is a big project.
Yeah.
And it's going to take time. So I'm going to make sure I told George Forbes to roll over his mattress and throw some money in that pot, okay? Okay? That's right. Okay. Thank you.
I talked to the big fella yesterday.
Right.
Yeah. All right, Councilman Kerry McCormick and then Councilman Conwell, we have the close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be very brief. I'll just say that, first of all, great to see everyone here at the table. I spent quite a bit of time in Councilman Conwell and Griffin's wards, whether going to museums or shops and all the great things that Glenville and Little Italy have to offer. And I drive by the "Let's finish this" sign all the time, and I think about you guys. I guess my question, Chair, and this may not be a question for today. I support this ordinance. I don't need to tell anyone at this table the African American community is probably the most important community in the city of Cleveland. Its history, etc. cetera. The Irish community has a beautiful garden. You will definitely beat the fountain with this one. The little Irish fountain is not going to be able to stand up to this. But I guess, Chair, to the panel, we got to get this thing done. And I don't know if that is more investment from the city, foundations, whatever it might be, but this is like the most prominent community in the city of Cleveland. We got to get this thing done. So, I think that we should, after today, support this, but then really think about whether it's city investment or more foundation or private, get into that $4 million. This thing has got to be a landmark for past, present, future, in the city of Cleveland. So we got to get this thing done. This is such an important project for the city of Cleveland and the region. So that's what I'll say, Chair. I'm not going to, mess with this. Let's get this done today. But how do we work together to get this thing over the finish line? That's all I'll say.
Totally agreed. And
Thank you, Councilman.
this is something that I will lend whatever support I can behind it. I'm thoroughly behind this as well. Mr. Ewing, I want to thank you for just being a constant presence, you and your wife, and really drumming up for support and not taking no for an answer. So appreciate it. Councilman Kevin Conwell.
It's good to see Carl here, Carl Ewing, and Obi. You could be using this time to practice, man. I know. I really enjoy listening to you. Your scales and your arpeggios and those kind of things. It's cool beans, man. With this here, I'm going to echo what Councilmember Mike Polensek was narrating to you, to the chair, to Mr. Gentile. We should have put it automatically into where we could gain interest on it. Just automatically. And how much is $325,000 we're looking at, right? And how much interest would that accumulate through the chair to Gentile? What you thinking?
Through the chair, the council person, we have to calculate that. So just to reiterate, it wasn't an interest-bearing account, but the money was put in the general fund because the grant agreement didn't dictate that interest goes in there.
We should have did it then, because you see it. We should have put it in there to gain interest right away, because you're the expert through the chair.
Right.
We should have. And we lost money. It's not good to lose money. We did.
To the chair, the council person, again, the interest is in the general fund, so we didn't lose any money. It just wasn't applied to this fund.
We should have had it in there. But let me ask to the chair, to Obi. You will start executing next year, take some of the money, and because funders are not going to give you anything when they see that it's stagnant. You got to start executing on the project next year. Then when they see the outcome measures, then more people will want to put dollars in there. Do you agree, to the chair, to Obi?
Mr. Chairman, to the councilman, we're talking to the people who would execute it and seeing if we can get something going. We're talking to them.
You got to start moving on some things. Mr. President, some of the gardens received federal funding some years ago through the chair. Isn't that right, Carl? It's taken us a long time. They received state funding and federal funding, and I think the state capital budget is up this year. You got to talk with your state senator. You have to talk with the state representative also, Terrence Upchurch, so that we can get dollars. The who? The break. Oh, okay. Well, the great is when you get outcome measures. And he's good. But back to that, you got to do that. It will help us out. So I approve this. You called me. You reached out to me, Obi Shelton. But you got to start executing and pulling down some of the dollars. And it's going over to the Cleveland Foundation, and they have a fund. Would that deplete all the dollars this year, Mr. Controller?
To the chair, the council person, that will just send the grant from the Cleveland Foundation. Council is, the general fund had committed some money in a prior supplemental that's still on our books, and council members have supplied some money. So I think the total still in the city's books is $175,000 between the general fund support as well as councilmatic funds that have been applied to the project.
Do you guys have, to the chair, to Carl and Obi, who's controlling the funds when you execute on the money, to show the books and those things? And I ask this question of everyone. You know, the money and controlling costs means a lot to me.
Well, the association controls the money. We have, like that 1.8 is spread across a number of funds. State, there's a private foundation fund that has like $50,000 once we start, once we break ground. But we're controlling it. What we're trying to do is to get it all into one fund, or as many of those accounts as possible into one fund, so that it can, it'll gain interest in mass.
Right.
Does that answer your question to the chair?
You know, I just always look at money, and you guys, when you meet, you discuss the dollars. It's in the different fundings and the funding streams, to the chair, to Obi.
Absolutely, and that's why we wanted to make this move, so that number one, we could get interest, and so that all of the money could be in one pot, so that we could see how it's building.
And so when you request for the dollars from the Cleveland Foundation, what is the process to request for the money?
Well, we ask them for, in this case, or you mean just generally?
In this case, in general, let's say in general.
Just in general, I mean, we talk about what we could use, and sometimes it's operating money to help us to get our message out. And other time, now this one was a grant specifically for, well, it was mostly for construction, but also for donor engagement. But we're focusing it on construction. We could, we're in talks with a number of foundations about operating money so that we can get our message out more.
You got to get that out.
A lot of people don't know what you just saw. They don't know that exists.
Right, they don't know. They don't even know that's the gate to no return or whatever the case may be. They don't know. Right. You know, I mean, I'm there. I'm 100%. I just look at systems, and that means a lot to me. Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for City Council to move forward and approve the legislation. Thank you.
And also, Mr. Chairman, to the councilman, we're getting some important people on board that are in discussions now.
Yes.
And I think they can really help to move this forward. That's what we were hoping. I think the St. Louis grant really helped us with that. The people say, whoa, okay, you all are serious about this. And so now we're getting some people who are taking notice and are coming on board.
Well, this means a lot to me. I mean, personally, a lot to me. I understand the door of no return from Ghana and Senegal, Nigeria, and places like that. I understand that going through the Middle Passage, through places like Dominican Republic, St. Thomas, Jamaica, all of that stuff going through there and through the rites of passage. I understand those things, and as well as Puerto Rico and places like that we went through, and the gateway to go to there. But you got to share it, and you have to share it with our people to go ahead on and push it through. I pass by it all the time, and I think about it, because I know the way. I understand the way a great deal. Matter of fact, you guys gave me an award for that last year. Was it this year or was it last year?
It was early 2024.
Time is going by so fast, but I understand it. And I'm there 100%, so I support it.
And we know. Thank you.
All right,
Thank
just
you,
keep systems in place. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman and Mr. Shelton, how long have you been working on this project?
Personally, or the
whole thing?
The association, it was first conceived in 1961.
Okay. So I'm hearing 2021 dollars. Is that when you first came, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Shelton? Is that when you first came to the city looking for money?
No. The city actually granted something back in 2001.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Shelton, the question is this. How short are you in funds to get this project completed?
Well, we're about halfway to completion. But we have been able to raise, close to $1 million just in the last year.
Okay. So you're $3 million short?
$2 million.
$2 million?
Approximately $2 million, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, to the administration, I implore you to find Mr. Shelton the $2 million to finish this project. We have money for everything else, and this is a project that is well-needed, well-deserved, and we have money for everything else. So I think that we need to come up with finding some additional dollars to help this project come to completion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Councilman Case.
All right. I don't see any other questions. Therefore, ordinance number 1327-2024 stands approved. I am going to break until 1:15. If council can reconvene at 1:15, we're going to break and go from there. Please sign on to 1327. To all of our audience, 1:15 we'll reconvene.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
All right.